This is basic information. We had two key officials at the FDA resign over this approval process, and it's little old Judicial Watch who has to come in and do the heavy lifting to get this information about this major issue. There's no more important drug in the history of modern man than these COVID vaccines. So, you know, when people talk about the deep state, they're often referencing the FBI, the Justice Department, the CIA, NSA, Pentagon, etc., and their attacks on Trump and their objections to constitutional government and self-government. Contempt for the rule of law, contempt for voters, contempt for taxpayers, thinking they know better than the people's elected representatives. That sort of arrogance that is so contemptuous of your right, as I say, to govern yourselves. So that arrogance isn't just limited to the national security state. It's also a clear and present danger in the deep state public health agencies. HHS, Health and Human Services, which has purview over NIH, National Institutes of Health, and CDC, and the FDA, and Fauci's agency is a sub-agency of NIH, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which spend boatloads of money on things like gain-of-function research in China. I mean, that's all you need to know, that they did that and they didn't want you to know about it. And of course, then there have been controversies over the way the vaccines have been handled and mandates and, you know, and other public health pronouncements that too often seem based on politics rather than science, as Dr. Birx has confirmed in her recent book, confessing, in my view, to potential criminal activity and fraud. We have new documents coming out of the FDA, for instance, showing that FDA officials at the top were concerned about the Biden administration's vaccine Biden administration's vaccine booster timeline. They said the timelines made no sense. And it wasn't just the Biden administration forcing this timeline on the FDA in terms of approving these controversial boosters, but you had also, according to these documents, the manufacturers of the drugs as well. We had to sue for the records, as always, because the FDA, again, thinks it's above the law, doesn't think it needs to follow transparency law, and just ignores requests for information. And it's only because Judicial Watch goes to court are we able to get much information. You know, sometimes we don't go to court and we get the information, but that's kind of the exception that proves the rule. So they gave us 112 pages. Maybe they have 112,000 pages hidden, who knows. They gave us the information in response to a lawsuit we filed earlier this year over a September 2021 Freedom of Information Act request. This was a simple request for essentially emails of the two top FDA vaccine officials. I mean, we weren't asking for give us all records about vaccines since the beginning of time, because these two vaccine officials resigned from the FDA because they saw the process was corrupted. Specifically over the White House's push of the controversial booster shots. And the specific report about what happened is that Gruber and Krause, who were the two officials we FOIA'd about, were among a group of resigning doctors who agreed that available evidence doesn't yet indicate a need for COVID-19 vaccine booster shots among the general population. And they resigned, I guess they saw the way things were going, and they resigned about a week before the booster shots ended up being approved by the FDA. The records that we received include an email by Gruber to her boss, Director Peter Marks at the Center for Biologics Evaluations and Research. Over the last couple of days, Janssen, which I believe is short for Johnson & Johnson, or another name for Johnson & Johnson, has bombarded us with emails regarding their booster dose studies. I'm also very concerned that companies such as Pfizer and Janssen are trying to put pressure on the Office of Vaccines Research and Review by way of PR We need to be given time to consider their data and cannot be pushed by these companies, and for that matter, the administration, who try to impose timelines. She writes timeless, she means timelines, that make no sense, e.g. September 20th. It appears that at least Pfizer's data will not be aligned with this approach, and the N test numbers that they have are grossly insufficient. Obviously, we have to review the data, but we have taken a peek and have serious concerns. Lastly, and this is my personal opinion, data we have seen so far from various companies, Pfizer, Janssen, and Moderna, appear to suggest that the boosters are not needed. Now, in the end, I don't know if the boosters were needed or not. You know, I have my suspicions about that I don't want to distract you on, but you can imagine what I think of this vaccine mania. In an email exchange on August 27th, 2021, Gruber replies to an email from Maureen Hess, a communications specialist, again at that Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. Well, the message appears to be total buy-in and the need for boosters. This is not how I am writing the likely board decision. I'm trying to take a more neutral approach. This piece sounds as if we've already decided to approve this supplement. Hess responds, okay, I'll make some additional edits. But the acting commissioner was included in this statement. So our edits may be rejected above us. After sending more emails about the edits, Gruber replies, from my perspective, this is as good as it can get. Obviously, this statement puts us into a real bind, but the damage is already done. Does any of this reassure you about the vaccine approval process at the FDA? At least the booster approval process? Doesn't assure me. In an August 20th, 21 email, there's an email back and forth regarding new data that Moderna was submitting to the FDA about its COVID vaccine. The writer tells Drs. Gruber and Krause and other colleagues, I had to bite my tongue when Peter, likely Peter Marks, who again is the head of the key agency there evaluating vaccines, mentioned this morning we wouldn't be doing rushed reviews anymore so as not to ask about the booster doses that the administration promised to everyone by September 20th. So their sarcasm is, you're saying we're not going to do rushed reviews anymore, even though we've got this timeline of September 20th, which is a little over a month away. And then there is the question of the data, that will support these booster doses. Maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is that Pfizer is proposing that their SPLA include the phase 1 booster data from a grand total of 23 subjects. I'm not sure what Moderna will have, but the data Fauci presented in the press conference from NIAID studies, which was about 25 subjects per treatment arm. Gruber states again in another email earlier that month that the team fully understands that the acting commissioner would like to approve this product very soon and are trying their best to complete their review and assessment, while at the same time maintaining our high standards and scientific and clinical integrity. Another August email. It sounds like Peter, again, this key official who has the approval authority in part, thinks that he has taken over all vaccine operations, not just the Pfizer BLA, which is the biologics license application. So it goes on. So you have these two officials complaining about the lack of data. By the way, when outsiders complain about the lack of data and these booster shots, you get censored. And here you have internal FDA people complaining about the lack of data supporting the need for these booster shots. Now, evidently, the boosters provide some additional, I don't know what, for a period of time after you get them. Evidently, it's outrageously insufficient period of time, because now they're asking people to get 4 or potentially 5 shots in total. Maybe for all time, who knows? These FDA documents confirm a politicized approval process for the controversial COVID-19 vaccine booster shots. It is a scandal that it took months in a federal lawsuit for these troubling facts about this unprecedented and seemingly never-ending vaccine operation to come out. So I tell you, what's frustrating, among other things, is that this is basic information. We had two key officials at the FDA resign over this approval process, and it's little old Judicial Watch who has to come in and do the heavy lifting to get this information about this major issue. There's no more important drug in the history of modern man than these COVID vaccines. And yet, there's another group in Texas suing for COVID vaccine data. And I'm not to say there aren't people asking questions otherwise, but I tell you, the number of people in federal court over it, 2. As best I can tell, there are 2. I'm sure there are others, but I know Judicial Watch is taking the preeminent lead in trying to get this information. And there's so much information we got, I can't go through it all with you here. So I encourage you to go to judicialwatch.org, look up our work on the NIH, raising questions that we don't raise the questions, the documents raise questions that show dishonesty in the way the vaccines were sold, that show corruption and dishonesty and potential crimes in the gain-of-function research that Fauci's agency was involved in Wuhan and elsewhere, and other dangers here in America, and who knows where else, related to gain-of-function research that they don't want you to know about, that we've exposed. As I said last week, I don't know about you, I consider this to be an important issue. Now we have this monkeypox vaccine, or this monkeypox virus. So we're going to go through this all again? Yes, unless we call them out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.